There was a night,
a sacred night, a night that changed eternity forever. A table was set, bread was broken, a cup was lifted. But hidden within that moment was betrayal, was suffering, was a sacrifice the world would never forget. Tonight, we walk into that room. We follow Jesus. From the Last Supper to the cross. It was the time of Passover, a season of remembrance, a celebration of deliverance. Jesus sat with his 12 disciples, those he had walked with, those he had loved. The Bible tells us in Luke chapter 22, verse 19, "Then he took bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, 'This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me.'" He took the bread, and what seemed ordinary became divine. Then he lifted the cup. Luke chapter 22, verse 20. "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you." This was not just a meal. This was a declaration, a new covenant, a new beginning, a new way back to God. Then suddenly, the atmosphere changed. Jesus spoke, and his words cut through the silence like a blade. Matthew chapter 26, verse 21. "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." Hearts began to race. "Is it me?" they asked, one by one. But Jesus knew. He always knew. John chapter 13, verse 26. "It is the one to whom I will give this piece of bread." And he gave it to Judas. Betrayal was not coming from outside. It was sitting at the table. Jesus looked at Peter, the bold one, the confident one, and said, Luke chapter 22, verse 34, "Before the rooster crows today, you will deny 3 times that you know me." Peter couldn't believe it. "Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death." But Jesus knew, even the strongest hearts can fail without grace. After the supper, Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane, and there, the Savior of the world fell to his knees. Matthew chapter 26, verse 39. "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." The weight of every sin ever committed, the guilt of every soul that would ever live, fell upon him in that moment. He asked his disciples to stay awake, to pray with him, but they fell asleep. He was alone. He was in agony. Luke chapter 22, verse 44. His sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. The cup was not taken. The Father's will remained. And yet, he chose obedience. He chose us. Suddenly, torches in the night, soldiers approaching, the sound of footsteps on the garden floor, and there was Judas leading them with a kiss. Luke chapter 22, verse 48. "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" The disciples fled. Peter drew a sword, but Jesus stopped him. He was arrested, not because he was powerless, but because he was willing. Jesus was taken before the rulers, falsely accused, mocked, beaten. The prophet Isaiah had spoken of this moment centuries before. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 5. "But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed." They spat on him. They struck him. They pressed a crown of thorns into his brow, yet he said nothing, because love was speaking louder than words.
Then came the cross.
Heavy, rough, unbearable. Jesus carried it, step by step, through the streets, toward Golgotha, the place of the skull. Luke chapter 23, verse 33. When they came to the place called the skull, they crucified him there. Nails pierced his hands, nails pierced his feet. They lifted him up between heaven and earth, and still he spoke. Luke chapter 23, verse 34. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Even in agony, he chose forgiveness. Darkness covered the land. For 3 hours, the sky went black. Then Jesus cried out. Matthew chapter 27, verse 46. My God, why have you forsaken me? In that moment, he bore the full weight of separation from God, so that we would never have to. Then, with his final breath, John chapter 19, verse 30, it is finished. Not a cry of defeat, but a declaration of victory. The veil of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. The price was paid. The way was opened. Sin was defeated. Death had lost its grip. This was not just a story from long ago. This was love in its purest, most sacrificial form. Jesus gave everything so that we could have life. As it says in Romans chapter 5, verse 8, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Today, the cross still speaks. It says, you are forgiven. You are loved. You are redeemed. Will you receive him?